Hello, I'm Jack Watson, UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, donut connoisseur, and today is one of my favorite days. Today's going to be our Illustrator challenge recap. We've got a full hour to go over any questions you have about Illustrator and hopefully about the challenges. So please ask in the live chat here on Behance and on Adobe Live, the Adobe Live YouTube channel, sorry. So yeah, go ahead and throw your questions in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. While we wait for questions to come in, I'm going to pull up our branding template, which is a part of our starter files we've been looking at throughout the month. So if you've been working on the challenges with us, you'll know that I provided this blank challenge or blank client presentation project for you, as well as pulling out each of these into starter files for you. We've got a question over on Behance that I'm more than happy to answer. What are your thoughts on jelly-filled donuts? Acceptable or basically not even real donuts? I think I like a good jelly-filled donut if it's like good jelly. You know, no like brand name. It's got to be like homemade jelly. You know what I mean? Anyways, so I've got this file. We've been taking sections of these every single week of the challenges and doing a handful of the pages from this. And today I'm going to be showing you how to kind of like put it all together. If you haven't started yet or you're just joining us for the first time today, no worries. You can still go back and watch the replays to learn how we put all of these together. But now that we got all of this stuff and I have all of my starter files open with where we kind of left them as we were working on them, you're probably thinking to yourself, great, how do I get them all into this file, right? So we're going to take a look at that. And there's a couple ways we can do that, actually. And I'm going to show you the way that you're probably thinking, which is not the way that I would probably do this. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I need to replace all of these. So you might go in here, you might select all of this content, and you might delete it out. You might go back over to challenge 1, drag all to select your first artboard, hit Command-C, go over to your presentation, and now there's a little bit of a trick to this. If you're using this method, make sure you click on the artboard that you want to paste to. That's going to activate it so that Illustrator knows that's the focus. That's kind of like the, I guess, just the focus, right? And you're going to Command F, maybe not, Command V, and it's going to paste it onto that artboard. So we just hit Command C and Command V to paste. It's not the most efficient way to go about doing that, so I'm going to show you a way that I prefer using that's going to be a little bit complicated at first, but it's actually going to benefit you in the long run since you're going to be able to manipulate a lot of artboards at once. So we're going to need to open up our artboard panel. I've got it open already because I'm working in the Essentials Classic workspace. If you go to Window, you can see it under this drop down here. But any of the windows that I'm working with, you'll be able to find in this window drop down as well. So I'm going to drag out my artboards, and fortunately, I have gone ahead and named all of them in all of your starter files, so it should make this process a little bit easier. I use this panel all the time, just because for working with a lot of artboards. If you did want to go in and rename these, all you have to do is double click and you'll be able to change the name right here. If we wanted it like, if this wasn't brand personality, it was brand discovery, for example. Since that was the name of our first challenge, you can go ahead and change the name there. But to replace all of these artboards, I'm actually going to have this panel open. I'm going to go back to challenge 1. And with the artboard tool selected over here in my tools panel, I'm just going to select all 4 of the artboards I want to copy, hit Command-C, and I can just go back into my template here, and I hit Command-V to paste them. I'm just going to paste them right into that file. Now, you might be tempted at this point to rearrange them manually. Resist the temptation. It's going to be okay. I'm going to go and I'm going to grab all of my artboards, I'm going to put them in here first, and then we're going to rearrange them kind of all at once instead of kind of piecemeal doing this. So we're going to go back into Challenge 2. I'm going to make sure to copy my primary logo. I don't need my working artboard, so I'm just going to copy that one. Command-C, Command-V, going into each of these. Again, I'm going to select, I don't need my working artboard here, so I'm just going to select 2 through 4, Command-C, going back over, Command-V, pasting it in there, and then we're going to go to, what are we on, Challenge 4 now with our mock-ups here. Don't need the working file, although it's nice to have all that stuff if you needed to kind of put together a presentation where you wanted to show some of the process work, right? And And we're going to go in and we're going to just select our two mock-up boards, Command C and Command V. So now we've got a nice mess of a file in here with everything kind of copied in. I'm going to just go into my artboards panel and I'm just going to select those template pages that are named the same. You can see brand personality that I copied in, brand personality up here. I'm just going to hold down Shift and select all of these artboards, all of the placeholders I had in this original file, and I'm going to hit delete. I am going to need to delete out all of this other stuff as well, so I'm just going to drag to select the artwork. Really, I just want to keep the first and the last artboards, which are kind of like my cover here, which we're going to get to in a sec, and our thank you page. Alright, so now we've gotten rid of all those extra artboards. Again, you're going to have the temptation to kind of go in here with the artboard tool and drag them around. We're not going to do that. I'm just going to go into my panel here, and you can drag to rearrange these to get them in the order that you want. In this case, I only really need to drag and pull my thank you page down. So now all the kind of meat of my presentation is sandwiched between the title and the thank you page at the end. And this order here, this numbered list, is going to be important. You can drag to rearrange these if you want to have your brand statement before your brand personality or something like that. If you didn't bring these in the order that you want them to be in, you can kind of rearrange them in this list. And once you kind of got them set exactly how you want them in this numbered stack, we're going to click on this little icon in the lower left, and that's going to let us rearrange all of our artboards at once. This is kind of the magic of this little trick here. And in here you can see we can arrange it so that it's by row, by column. We can arrange it. These two options here, the ones that actually the first one is the one I use more than often than not, because it lets me create like a grid of artboards. And we can specify the number of columns we want in that grid. So if you wanted it to match how our original template looks, we can set it to be 4, because it was originally 4 artboards, and then, however many rows, depending on the number of artboards that you have. So you can set it to 4. And then under here in spacing, you can actually set this to 0. So if you're making like a social carousel, like you were making something for Instagram and you wanted to have everything kind of like flow nicely together, and wherever you placed artwork, you didn't want a gap between them, we could set that to 0 and there'd be no space. Or if you wanted a little bit more space between your artboards, you could increase that number. It's really kind of up to you. And then the last thing that you want to make sure is you want to have Move Artwork with Artboard checked. That makes sure that when we have all of our artboards rearranged, all the lovely stuff that we copied in is going to stay onto our artboard. So we're going to hit OK. And just like that, it has rearranged our artboards for us. So that's my preferred way of doing this. It's a complicated set of steps, but if you've ever had to move a ton of artboards, this will save you a ton of time in the future. So now we've got our project kind of all in here, right? I would also recommend, if you are using this template for a client, that you go in and you really start to customize this. So in each of these, I have a header and a footer for you. And I like to put these on every single page. You can see if I kind of zoom in here. It's got information like the client name, what round of proofs is this? Is this round 1, round 2? Like, if you've gone through multiple rounds of feedback. We've got the date, which we can change to today's date. So I can just go in here and I'm going to start to change some of this information to align with, again, this is a template. You want to make it match, your client's information. So today is February 2nd. So we're going to do 2/2/24 and it's round 1 proofs. For client name here, this could go one of either ways. So if you have a client that is already, like there's a parent company, you would put that client's name and then maybe you would put Loaf here. So for the time being, our only brand that we're working with is Loaf. Did I mention that, by the way? We're working on a brand called Loaf. Let me kind of backtrack. So throughout the challenges, we've been working on a singular brand here. And you can feel free to use this project for client projects, passion projects, this template. You can create a brand that kind of aligns with the work that you want to be doing, or your own personal brand. I really like making food brands. It's something that I enjoy doing. It's, what I like to focus on with my work. So that's the project that we're working on. Loaf is a breakfast restaurant. It's geared towards families. And so if you're wondering what we're working on today, that's what we've been kind of like building throughout the past month, creating, doing our brand discovery. And then we went into logo, brand discovery, including making our mood board, some colors. We did some iterations, some concepts. If I just kind of go back over here, you can see all of the various like concepts that we created, sketches, and then we went through and created our final brand, iterations, and created some fun mock-ups so that help the client kind of visualize their brand. Okay, so back up here, if we just kind of imagine, right? And then this is where you put your information. So if, you don't ever want the client to have to wonder how they can contact you. So I'm just going to put my name in here. I'll put Jack Watson. Let's put Jack Watson .design for my website. You go through and you kind of fill this all out, right? Now, again, you're probably thinking, oh, it's going to take me forever to fill all these in. We're going to use another little trick here, a couple of little tricks here, to make it easier to get this across all of our artboards without having to reset the type every single time. So I've got let's say this is all kind of set. I'm just going to drag to select my header content, my footer. I'm just going to hit Command C to copy. So now when I hit Command C, it goes to live on our invisible pasteboard somewhere in the world. It's going to stay there until we need it again, as long as we don't hit Command C and copy something else. So we hit Command C, we've saved it. Now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to use some options in the Select Same menu. If you have not used the Select Same or Select Object menu, this can be a huge time saver for you. You can select the objects in your Illustrator file with specific parameters. So for example, if we wanted to select all of our text and we want to just kind of delete it, I can go Select Same and I'm going to say find all of the text that's the same. Where is it? Text size. Font size. And it's going to select all of that text for us, and all at once I can just hit delete and it's all gone. But don't worry, we're going to bring it back in a sec. And then I can do the same with the line. So I can select my line here and I'm going to go to Select Same and I'm going to select the same. We can either use appearance or we can use stroke weight. So appearance is going to take into consideration the stroke weight. It's going to take into consideration the stroke color, any appearance attributes, fills, stroke weights, effects, all that kind of stuff. And it's going to select anything in your file that has the same exact attributes. So it's just something to keep in mind. You're going to want to use this depending on what you're trying to select. So for example, we want to select all of the stroke weight here. Then we're just going to hit delete. All right, so now we've removed all of our header and footers from this file, but we did copy it first. So going back here, I'm going to go and use Edit, Paste on all artboards. And when I do that, it's going to paste the correct updated information on every single artboard in my file. Now you can see there are a couple areas where it's going to be problematic, where I have the darker background and you're going to want to go and edit those colors. But it certainly beats, like, I'm fine with editing a couple of colors as long as I don't have to go back in and like reset all of that, type it out over and over again. You might introduce spelling errors as you do it. It's just easier to do it once and copy and paste it in place with that paste to all artboards. But that being said, I'm not too worried about it because now we want to kind of brand this presentation, right? So we've kind of got all of our content in here, and let's just say that we don't want to have this black color for our cover. Maybe we want to use a color from our brand. So I'm going to go over here, and actually before I do that, I'm going to make sure I have my brand colors correct. If you remember, partway through the challenges, we decided to switch from using this navy to using this kind of orange color. So I'm going to go back to the challenge where we made that decision, Command C to copy that in, and then I'm going to go back to my template here, and we're just going to paste that. And then I'm going to match the size of this using the transform panel. So I've got my object selected here up in the control bar. I'm going to copy the width, select this, go back up here, and I'm going to paste it in. And that's going to make it the same size as my original, so that makes it easy for me to kind of move it into place. I'm also going to use another trick here. I'm going to use Align to Key Object, so I've got both of these selected. I'm going to click on the thing I want to align it to. That's going to make it my key object. And then from the Align panel, I can use the Align options to just move it into place. Now I'll hold down Shift to deselect the one that's in front and hit Delete. And now I've just got my colors in here that I want to use for my final. Alright, so now we've got our colors in. Let's say we want to change the background on our initial page, and then we'll do the same thing on our last page here. We don't want to use this black anymore, so I'm going to select both of them, and we can just grab our yellow, which could be fun. I probably want to change the color of this now to be instead of that color. Now if you wanted to, if I just clicked on the type, it's going to actually change it's going to pull the entire appearance from my type. So it's going to include the font and the text size as well. So if I hit Command Z, instead of just using the eyedropper and clicking on my type, I'm just going to use Shift, holding down Shift. Can you see it? Oh yeah, I do have my keyboard things on up there. But if you hold down Shift when you click on your type, it's just going to pull the color in. And that's not just type. If we did, you know, any color from any element in our file, if we picked it from the line here, it would make it black as well. It's just pulling, holding down Shift is just going to pull the color into our fill color. It's actually going to pull whatever you have in front here for our fill and stroke. So if I bring, it's probably easier for you to see if I move some things around in the color swatches, in the swatches panel. If I click on this, now my stroke is in front. And so if I used the eyedropper, we'll do it on a color so it's easier to see, and I held down Shift, it would pull that the color into whatever, if the stroke is in front, to the stroke. And it's going to apply just a 1-point stroke by default. So there's another little tip for you. Okay, so we've got all of our, let's say all of our headers and footers set out. Oh, we want to change the color of this as well. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to just change the color of that to make everything consistent. Oh, and see, I had my stroke in the front. Okay, holding down Shift again. So there's a couple other things we can do to kind of customize this if we wanted to make this feel on brand. So we can go up to, again, we're letting Illustrator do all of this work for us today. We're being very efficient about how we work. So going up to type, if you wanted to change the fonts out in your file, we're going to look at a way to do that, and it's going to depend on what's kind of in your file. That'll make sense in a second. So if I go up to the type menu here, and I click on this Find and Replace Fonts, it's going to pull up this kind of crazy window. And it's going to show me by default the fonts that are inside. So these are all the fonts that are in my document. We can see our brand fonts here. We've got Router, and we've got this DS Pang Pang, which is a DSA, is what the name comes up in Illustrator, as well as the default fonts that I use in this file, which are Filson Soft. So there's a couple ways you can go about swapping out fonts from this menu. You can go down here to this drop down, and you can choose either, I only want to look at fonts that are already in this document, and this is really helpful if you've kind of copied in the fonts that you want to use already, because you can see here I can go ahead and just switch out to one of my brand fonts, because the list is a little bit shorter, it's a little bit more manageable. If you've used that font recently, you can go ahead and switch to recent fonts, and it's going to show you everything you've kind of used most recently. Or if you really want to dig through all of your system fonts, you can switch to system, and it's going to pull up everything that you've got in here, including any Adobe fonts you have currently active. So going back to Documents, now I can swap out, let's say I want to switch my Filson Soft regular for Router. I'm going to select in the top area, because remember the top is the document font. So these are all the fonts that are in my document. And let's say I want to change all of the fonts that are Filson Soft regular to be this Router, which I think is set to regular currently. And I'm just going to hit change all. You could go through and it'll actually like show you, it'll highlight, let me move this out of the way, it'll actually highlight for you where all those fonts are used if you wanted to change them on like an individual basis. Or you can do just change all. And now if I just hit done, you can see this font is a little bit, it's very similar to Filson, so it might be hard to see the difference. But if I click on these, you can see that this is actually using my Router font now. So, and what I'd recommend doing, honestly, in order to make your life easier for this process, is I would just go through here and I would actually copy this a couple times. So we've got Router here. And I don't actually know if Router has, Router does have different options. So we'd set a bold here, for example, and then I would go up to my type, find and replace fonts, and now we can replace our Filson Soft bold with our Router bold and hit just change all. And then for these headings, I'm actually going to change them all to be that as well. For these main headings, I'm actually going to change these to the DSA, the DS Pang Pang, and just see kind of how it looks. I might want to use that since those are bigger fonts. Again, those are going to be better candidates for using like fun fonts or display fonts. So I'm going to go back to my Filson Soft Heavy, which I use for all of my very large title text. I'm going to try changing it to DSA. I might not like that, but we're going to try it. Okay, you know, that's actually pretty readable. So I think I'm going to leave it, and I think it's a little bit fun. You know, these are just little things that are going to take your presentation, like, to the next level, so that you can kind of, like, it feels like the whole thing is branded, right? It feels a little bit more, like, now it feels like our playful brand with, like, the yellow background and the fonts that we chose. And once you get all of your fonts kind of set in here, the other thing I would do, and this is super minor, is I would just swap out this client name. We'll switch it to be Loaf. Actually, I think I might want to do Loaf in our brand fonts. And I'll scale that down a little bit. So we'll just kind of have like a smaller version. And maybe we'll set this to be, you know, in our little like orange color here, so it feels very on brand. So there we go. Feel free to kind of to customize this to your heart's desire. I do see we've got a couple of questions here. Is this recorded? Yes, if there's a replay of this, it'll be available after the stream. If you are watching the replay, leave a comment on YouTube. And Katerina has a question: how would you approach adding the whole color palette to swatches? That is a great question, and it's, again, super easy. So we've got our color palette, and I would actually recommend doing this, to be honest with you. Once you kind of have your design kind of all set, and I should have done this before, it certainly would have made my life easier when I was kind of deciding about colors. So I'm gonna zoom in here, and now you could go through in here and you can just kind of add these individually, but that's no fun, right? That would take forever if you had a million colors. But you can also select everything. So if you had like even a piece of artwork and you wanted to add all of the artwork from that design, or all of the artwork, all of the colors from that artwork all to your swatches panel at once, you can click on the whole thing, and then you have this little like folder icon. You're not going to be able to, the plus sign over here is going to be grayed out. That's just for making a single swatch. But if you wanted to add a color group, which is like a group of swatches in like a little folder, I'm just going to go ahead and click that. And when I do that, it's going to ask me, like, do you want to name this? We'll call it our Loaf color palette, right? And it's going to add our swatches from the selected artwork. That's what it says here. And I like to use global swatches personally because it lets me use tints in my color slider. So let me kind of show you what that looks like. I'm going to hit OK with convert process to global. And global swatches have these little triangles in the corner here that kind of clues you in that it's going to be a global swatch. And now if we just take our logo here and we apply our, I'm going to use, ooh, you know what? I don't think I punched the shapes out of that one, so let's do that really quick. This will be a recap from our first challenge. I'm going to hold down Option with the shape builder. I'm just going to make sure I've got all of those white spaces punched out of my logo here. Oop, accidentally zoomed in to my other shape. And then we're going to delete all that out. Alright, so now we've got just a single, do we? I think I'm missing one. There we go. Let's go ahead and apply our color. Oop, I missed the L. Guys, this would be easier if I was doing this against a gray background or a color background. Okay, so now we've got our color applied, and in the color window, which again, you can get to under the window menu here, I can adjust this tint slider, which lets me get like tints, like lighter and darker colors of our, or it's hard, I wouldn't call it actually lighter and darker, I would say percentages of our color, so less percentage. So if we were printing this, you would have less percentage of that ink, for example. And Vandal is saying, when doing generative recolor, you get 4 options, but when you pick one and apply it, it seems like you lose access to the other options. And I'm missing something. Correct. The color options in generative recolor do not stay around like the other generative tools do. So like when you use text to vector, you get those 4 options. You can kind of go back and reference them. When you're using generative recolor, once you close that window, those options are going to disappear, unfortunately. But you can kind of run that prompt again. Let me take a look and grab that for you. Actually, I can just grab it from here, from Recolor Object in my contextual toolbar. And this is something that we did in one of the challenges when we were talking about picking color palettes. You can either do it manually, or you can do it using generative recolor. You could also do it using Adobe Color, which somebody asked about, and I want to get back to that question because I want to talk about Adobe Color if we have time. But switching over to generative recolor, if we wanted to change this, let's go with our cozy breakfast diner. Let's just go with that since that's our theme, and hit generate, and we're going to see what kind of color palette we've got. Let me double check if we got some more questions. Sion says, I have some brand art like figures for backgrounds. Is it possible to add those to a library as vectors? Because whenever I do, it saves raster. Okay, let me show you that in a second too. Alright, so here you go. Here's your 4 options, and let's just pick kind of one to play with here. Actually, I kind of like those colors. It is giving like 50s diner with the like, I don't know what it is about the pink and the teal, but it's working for me. But once you close out of this window, if you were to like reopen recolor and go back to generative recolor, it does not keep those options, so it's just kind of something to be aware of. Alright, I am going to undo that so we don't lose our colors. Well, I did like that color palette. Let me see. Oh yes, the other question was about libraries. Yes. So let's kind of imagine for a second that our brand is done. We've sent it off to feedback from the client. The client loves it and wants to, use it today. At that point, I do like to create a library. So I'm going to go over here, and libraries are a great tool, not only for you, so like if you're working in other Adobe apps, so if we brought this over to Adobe Express, you'd be able to pull in those brand assets into an Adobe Express if you're making like social graphics or something like that. But and I'm just gonna throw everything in here, and you can make folders in here too. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a folder, and I'm just gonna say like mood board. And that's just in the libraries panel. I just added a new, and we're just going to drag all of this stuff. I know all of this isn't mood board, let's just pretend. Some of it's mock-up stuff, but I just want to make it easier to see what we're doing. So if we kind of close that caret there, now we can kind of like take all that stuff and put it into a folder so we don't have to look at it anymore. And let's go ahead and add our assets. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to change this back to having a black fill on it. Since I want to have like a one color version. And over here on the side under add elements, you click on this little plus, it'll bring up a couple of options. So you can either add a fill color, and it's going to depend on what you have selected. If you have text, you're going to get different options, but I've got this, our logo selected, which is giving me the option to either pull in that fill color as like a color swatch. It actually pulls it in, it does pull it in as a swatch. If you use color themes on Adobe Color, it's going to show a color group or a color theme, which is different. But a fill color is just going to show, just as a plain fill color that you can add to your color swatches. But if you're adding in a graphic, so if we add in our graphic here, what I think you're referring to, Stian, is when you drag this in, you get the like linked asset, kind of like the X across, and it's not something you can like directly edit. And that's because it's a linked asset, and if you were to edit that, you would want to go into your original, ideally, you'd want to go into your original library artwork. So if we double click on this, and let's say we change the color of this, I'm just going to change it to something crazy so we can see. Hot pink. Alright, we're going to just hit OK. I'm going to hit Command S to save. It's going to update my library, and when I go back, now it's made my graphic hot pink, right? So that's the logic behind having it be kind of a linked graphic. But if we go back here and we undo that and we hit save, go back, it's going to update again. If you wanted to, you can click on this embed. You can also get to it from Edit Original in the control bar. But if you click on this embed, that's actually going to like give you artwork. Now this is embedded in my file. It's no longer linked to my library. And if I go, just like linked assets work in Illustrator regularly, and Katarina says the color is jelly. That's a great idea. Pink should totally be one of our branding colors. I feel like that's like the second time I've gone and added some pink. Alright, so we've got I just opened and closed so I can get back to my layers here. So, because I want to show you what this looks like in your layers panel. So I'll pull this out so it's a little bit easier to see. The only thing is, it usually makes like a group like this when you've got, oh my gosh. Hold on a second, my phone is making noise. I'm trying to make it stop. Alright, it'll make a group like this. So you might have to do like an ungroup a couple of times to get down into your original shapes. I think it actually made a clipping mask. Yeah, so we're gonna wanna do like an ungroup. We're gonna wanna release that clipping mask, and now you've kind of got your original art. It's kind of annoying, but like I said, the idea with working with those is it's not actually making raster art, it's just making a linked file. And if you've ever worked with linked, like raster, if you've placed raster art, it usually shows up as something that, you know, it's a linked asset until you embed it. That's probably why you kind of thought it was a linked raster piece of art, but it actually is vector. Oh yes, so Sion's saying I just resolved it with the clipping mask. Yeah, that's the only kind of like weird thing, and I think it kind of does that to kind of keep the like bounds of the original shape. So if you had like if we look back over here, I don't know, if you had like a different sized artboard or something like that, I think it keeps the clipping mask to kind of keep the original bounding box there. That's my assumption. It could be wrong. Okay, so we've got our assets in here, and like I said, if you were going to share, if you were going to, you know, if you were done with this project, right, and we were ready to kind of have it go live, I would go in here and I would add all of these to our library as graphics, and I would organize them. I would obviously not keep them grouped here. I would ungroup them, and I would add them all in here. And the nice thing about libraries is you can actually, not here. There's a way to make a link. Get link right here. If you click on this get link in the libraries panel, it'll actually give you a link that you can share with your client. So even if they don't have like a full Creative Cloud account with like you know, Illustrator or whatever, they can, if you share this link with them, they can create a free Adobe account and they can download, I call it like self-serve, they can download a JPEG or a PNG, I think get a PDF as well of their artwork. So it's kind of a really handy way for them to get access to their assets really easily instead of having to ask you 1,000 times. All right, and A and H, this is not a replay, this is live, so feel free to go ahead and ask me questions. Happy to answer them. We are live right now. All right, so that's everything that I think I want to talk about libraries, unless somebody has a specific question about libraries. If we kind of backtrack for a minute, I've talked a couple of times about using the share links. I've had a little bit of trouble getting them to work, but I did make one in advance today to kind of make sure that I had one working. But what I like to do when I have a final branding presentation, I'm ready to share this with the client, it looks beautiful, and I want to get their feedback, I like using share links. I've talked about this before, and I want to kind of show you why. So if this doesn't load, I'm going to pull up one that I worked on with a client before so I can give you an idea what they look like. So it looks like I'm still going to have issues. But this is one that I worked on for a project with a client. And when you export out, share a link, you can share it with your client and they can give you feedback right here. And this, I have permission from this client to share this. I worked on this on one of my live streams. And you can see that the client has gone through and they have pinned comments where they want to talk about something specific. This is in regards to color palettes. We have our mood board here. Let me scroll through. They pinned comments on the logo concepts that they liked, right? And then if you go in here, some of these actually have replies as well. So you can reply to clients right in here. And this file actually, if you notice, I've got multiple dates on things because this file actually I kept the same link the entire project. So you can update your share link whenever you make a change, and you can also view your comments right in here if I open up the comments panel. So if we had some comments on our share link, oh, there we go. They would show up in here, and you could actually see there's little like pins that appear, just like they appear on the website. So let's go ahead and see if we can get a comment in here. Let's do a little donut emoji or something for ourselves. There we go. Little star eyes. And hit submit. And now, if I go to copy my link and I open it up, it'll show up on the website. And give it a sec. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a pinned comment. It looks like, yeah, I didn't update this, so it's a little bit behind since my share link panel wasn't working, but I'll just add a comment here that says, love it, and hit submit. Now if I go back to my file, I might be having an issue with getting them to load now that I think about it, since my share for review. Oh, there, it popped up. Should be getting a little annotation. Come on. You know, it might not be showing up because I wasn't able to update that link. Yeah, it says unmapped, so it's not appearing because I have to, there's a discrepancy between the two links currently. But if I was able to update this, you'd be able to see it kind of happen in real time. But yeah, this is how I get client feedback on like real projects. And you never have to worry about not having the latest PDF or you know, looking at the wrong thing or needing to share it with multiple people. Like anybody with this link can leave a comment. You don't have to have Illustrator. I think there was a question actually in one of the streams is, do you have to have Illustrator to use share links? No. These two, my clients here do not have, you know, Creative Cloud accounts. You can see it says guest next to their name. So you don't have to have a Creative Cloud account to leave comments and stuff like that, which is super handy for getting feedback from clients. And again, they can share it. I can make changes to this link and they can reopen it. They'll see the feedback that they had previously and they'll see the update, which is really nice. It just kind of keeps everything in like one source of truth, single source of truth. All right. All right, let's close out that. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about, we talked about adding stuff to a library, we talked about finishing out our file. I have a couple of little like pro tips that I wanted to share, just kind of based on some of the stuff we made in the challenges. Let me clean up my workspace a little bit. And the first one I want to talk about is Adobe Color, because that did come up. So we talked about during the challenges 2 ways to make color palettes. I kind of walked you through how you could use our little diagram here. Here it is. This was the original with our different values, and we made a little like using blends. We made these swatches, and then we used this as like to keep our base values. So we wanted a dark color, a light color. You know, we wanted a good range of values, right? A couple of pro tips, Corey says. Yeah, but please ask any questions. And Alejandro says, good concepts. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But ask me any questions in the chat that you have as I'm going. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep flying on through. So I showed you how we could do this using generative recolor to kind of get some ideas. If you had some notes that you put together from our brand personality, you wanted to use those to come up with some prompts to keep, you know, to see if we used like cozy breakfast diner to create a color palette that I really liked. But I also showed you how you can make, you know, kind of your own. I've got like a little complementary color palette down here if you wanted extra challenge mode. But I had somebody in the chat ask about using Adobe Color. And I don't know, this is like maybe something that you've probably been here before, you've probably heard me or somebody else talk about it, but maybe you don't really know how to use the tool itself. Maybe this is a little bit intimidating, this kind of color wheel view. I just wanted to give you a quick overview on how this all works. So from this color wheel view, there's a lot of stuff happening on the screen, but it actually makes a lot of sense. It just takes a little bit of playing around with to understand. So if we go up here, I like to pick one of these color palettes. I'll go with the split complementary. And you don't really need to know what those rules are. Again, like it may seem intimidating, but I would say just click through and see. And you'll be able to figure out just kind of how these are, how the colors are arranged along these lines, how they're going to work. So if I go to split complementary here, you're going to see we've got our main color, and then we've got these 2 branches off, right, our secondary colors, because complementary colors are opposite each other, the color wheel. So, and it might be a little bit hard to see. I'm actually going to drag this around for a sec to make it easier to see. In our circle, we've got a little triangle on one of our colors, and it's the same down here. And this is our base color. So our base color is kind of like the cornerstone of our color palette. No matter, you know, when we rotate this around, that's going to control the position of all of the other colors. I can move these independently up and down. But if I move these, they're all going to move simultaneously. This is kind of like controlling my colors. And I can actually switch which one I want to be the base color just by hovering and clicking on these little, if you hover over it, has like a little arrow with, you know, setting the base color. So if you wanted to switch to one of the other colors, there you can. So our color for our brand, our main color, we wanted to be yellow. So you had an idea of where you wanted to start. You wanted to start with yellow. And you noticed before maybe that as I dragged inward and outward, and it kind of gives you a little indication, I'm actually changing like the saturation. So I'm getting less saturated as I move towards the center of the color wheel. You can even see it gets like lighter and less color at the center. And as I pull out, it's going to get more saturated. And then down here we've got 3 main colors, but we've got 5 colors in our color palette, right? And we've got these 2 little accent circles here along our color palette, just kind of build to create like a complete 5 color palette. So you can think of these as like little accent colors on top of your split complementary color palette, and they exist on the same branches as our split complementary. And when I click on them, you can see that it darkens the circle. That's because those are a darker brightness than the original kind of colors. When I click back on my original, it makes them lighter. And I can drag these up or down the same way to change the saturation. But if I want to change the value, how bright or dark they are, light or dark they are. Down here under each of the colors at the bottom there's a little brightness slider, so I could go down here and I can make some adjustments. And this, once you do this, the one thing to kind of just be aware of is that once you do that, it's going to change your color harmony from, you know, split complementary to be custom. So now when I drag these circles, they're no longer going to abide by those rules. So I'm just kind of making my own custom color palette. You're just kind of breaking free from the color harmony rules. But that's kind of like an overview on how to use Adobe Color. I don't know, maybe some people have never kind of like worked with it before, or maybe we're kind of intimidated by this view. So I hope that kind of helps you understand how this works. And then once you kind of come up with a color palette that you want, like I mentioned, you can save this in as a color theme. I don't want to save this. You can push this to the public color themes, which we'll look at in a sec. But if you just want to save it, you're going to save it to your library. You can click up here to pick from the drop down the color library that you actually want to save this to, or the library that you want to save this to in your Creative Cloud libraries. So make sure you've got the one select that you want to use. And then when you hit save, it's going to push that color theme to your library, and you can go back into here. If we scroll down, now we can see our color theme. And I like to just right click on this and add color to swatches. Actually, hold on a second. I think I need to, let me open up my color window so you can see. I need to have both open. There we go. I think I can just drag it. No, I can't. I have to just add it. Add color to swatches. Oh my gosh, hold on. Oh. There we go. Had a bit of a loading. Add theme to swatches. Oh my gosh, I just had like a moment where I was lost with a track of what I was saying. Adding color to swatches, you'll see, is going to add like the individual color from the top here. I actually want to add theme to swatches, and now we've got our whole theme added. It does add them as process instead of global. Process just means it doesn't give you the option to have those tints, and you can switch that, I believe, really easily by, you can edit this color group. Maybe I have to select them all individually. Swatch options, there we go. You had to select them. I couldn't select the color group. I had to like shift to select all of the individual color options, and then go to, not process, global, check on global. And now they're global swatches that we can edit. So there you go. Little Adobe Color tips, since that was a question that had come up during the challenges. And the other thing that I kind of want to talk about, and I mentioned this while we were working on the mock-ups here. I want to kind of demonstrate what I did. So you're looking and you're like, oh, Jack, you added this super cool glow effect on this window decal, or like added a little bit of a blur. And I wanted to talk about this because it's not super straightforward, or not as straightforward as I thought. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to go over what I did to do this. I'm just going to delete one of these, and I'm going to go and I'm going to replace it with our original symbol so we can kind of work from what we had. So this is what we had earlier, right? If you recall, we worked on mockups. We used, it creates symbols, right? Now, if we go in and we edit the symbol that we have on this particular mock-up here that we added to our design using the mock-up tool, the beta mock-up tool in Illustrator. I'm going to go into Edit Symbol. And how I was able to do this, if I go up here and I try to add a stylize, where is it? I'm looking for a blur. It was probably like right in front of me. Blur. And I try to add a blur. Oh, it's not going to give me the warning. Hold on. It'll give you a little warning that says you can't use certain effects with the mock-up tool. So in order to kind of get around that, since I wasn't able to get a blur on this whenever I tried to, and I don't know why this is a drop shadow on it. Let's get rid of that drop shadow from our layers panel here. Appearance, we're just going to get rid of this. Alright, so if I apply a a blur to this, and I go out of my symbol, you're going to see that it's going to like disappear. It doesn't work. So in order to add a blur effect to this, I use a sneaky little workaround. I went to Type, Create Outlines. So I've got outlines of my type. And I'm going to use a opacity mask. I love using opacity masks. This is a little bit advanced, so if you have a hard time with this one, it's okay. It's a little bit more of an advanced technique. I'm going to hit Command-C and well, first I'm going to make a compound path. So I've got all of my objects selected. They're in a group currently, so if I pull out my layers panel, you're going to see all this stuff in a group here. And I want this to be a single shape, so a compound path takes all of the individual shapes inside of my group and turns it into a compound path. We can go to Objects, Compound Path, Make. And now you can see I've just got one single, it's inside of a group, but I've got one single, shape that's all of my letters. And I'm going to use Command-C to copy and Command-F to paste in front. Now that we've got our compound path, I'm going to change it to be white. So how opacity masks work is they work on values. So white is going to show, I think the common saying is white reveals and black conceals. So I'm going to leave it white so that it shows anything that's white in this is going to appear. And then we're going to add a inner glow effect. No, we're going to add inner glow effect from the effects drop-down menu, and we need to do a couple of changes to this. So normally you'd use an inner glow if you wanted to add something like glowing to the inside of an object, but we actually want this to be darkened. So I'm going to go up here from screen, and I'm going to change it to normal. I don't want a blending mode on this, I literally just want the color, I just want black. So I'm going to hit normal. I'm going to make sure the opacity is set to be 100, I want 100% black along the edges. Double click into our color picker, and this, I want to make a little note here. You don't want to use key black, if you know what I'm talking about. Key black is 100% K. It's not going to hide your letters all the way on the edges. You're going to get like a little, you're going to still see a little bit of it visible. So in this case, you actually do want to use rich black, which you can see if I just grab the black, from the file. It's gonna be a mix of CMYK, so that's rich black, just a little FYI. And now you can see that I've got a little bit of a dark edge on this. I can increase it a little bit more. If I wanted it to be more of a blur, I would increase the blur. More blurry. My text to be more blurry, I would increase the blur. You could also do it from the center if you wanted. That would hide the entire middle of your letters though, since black is obviously going to hide. But if we want to just have the edges blurred, we're going to just pick edge and we're going to say, okay, that's good. Let's tone it down a little bit. And now I'm going to go back and I'm just going to drag and I'm going to select both of my shapes here. So I've got the original text and I've got my black and white that I want to use for my mask. So I've made the mask first. And I'm going to go to the transparency window, and from the transparency window, all I have to do is hit make mask. And now you can see, because I set it up with the black edges, that it's kind of got a little bit of a blur on it. So this is just kind of a workaround since you can't use a regular blur effect with the mockup tool currently. If you wanted to add a little bit of a blurry edge to your window decal, since I did mention that, and I know that it maybe not so super straightforward way to do that if you try to use the blur effect. Okay. So back in our file, and the last thing, since we don't have a ton of time, we're quickly running out of time. I wanted to show I'm gonna actually go back out to my challenge file. So when we worked on this, we went through how to create, this from start to finish. I kept all of the copies of my previous iterations, so starting with the toast shape and adding the text, going all the way through to, we actually used a warp effect on these, which I kept a copy of. So if we open our appearance panel, how we got these kind of funky shapes, we took the text, we expanded it to get shapes for the letters, and then I added actually I used a roughen effect to make the little egg white. And on the letters, we if you remember, used the warp effect, right? And that got you like 75% of the way there. This is kind of what you ended up with. But then what I shared with you all after the fact was this lovely view here. And there's a couple ways you can go about kind of making these goopy letters. I wanted to show using the warp effect because that's like a really approachable way. If you don't have like a drawing tablet where you can like draw those letters by hand. But there's really two other ways you can go about doing it as well. So if I copy this, we start with kind of like the before. There's a couple ways you can go about doing this. And again, all I did here was expand that effect. So I've got the effect kind of like punched into like the shapes of my letters. So if you have a tablet, a drawing tablet, like like a Wacom or a XP Pen or something like that, you can use the pencil tool. You can also use it if you have a mouse. I have a mouse today. And you're going to find it under the shaper tool. I often lose track of tools in Illustrator. As a minor side note, if you've never used the little hourglass up here, I use this all the time. So if I wanted to try and find the pencil tool, all I have to do is type it in, and when I click on it, it's going to service it for me. So really, little pro tip again for you there. All right, we're going to select our L, and let's say we wanted to make those like goopy letters, right? You can use the pencil tool to kind of manipulate the shapes of an existing path, as long as you draw over top of the path that you already have. It's a little bit weird, but if I draw like, crazy, right, it's just going to add a weird extension onto it. But if I start and I end on the original path, it's going to modify the original path. So you might have seen people do this before, where they kind of like go back over their drawing and they, change the edge shape here. If you're not great at drawing, a steady hand here, you can cheat a little bit by double clicking on the pencil tool. I've already cheated it up to smooth. And the fidelity, bringing it down to accurate, you have to like really want the wiggly shaky hand. If you bring it down to accurate is going to follow your mouse or pen movement like perfectly. So I have it pulled up to smooth. That's making it easier, even with a mouse, for me to get kind of those crazy curves that we want with our letters, for example. But the other option is to use the warp effects, and these can be a little bit wild. They're actually under the width tool here. So I'm gonna pick we're gonna go with a pucker since we want to make it, and you can see the brush is huge that it starts with. So again, you're gonna want to double click in here, and you're gonna want to bring these way down. I would say like, 25 or 50, like half at least. And the same with the intensity. I wouldn't have this above 5 or 10%. Like really, really drop that low because it has a really strong effect. I'm gonna hit OK, and now when I click, you can see it starts to like the pucker pulls in the shapes. I'm actually gonna make this a little bit smaller. We'll go 25. So this is another kind of option if you wanted to, bring those shapes in a little bit and get more of that like weird, goopy letter forms. And there we go with our A. And if you got to a point where like I don't really like these corners, you can just go back to your smoothing under Object Path Smooth. We just bring it up so we can soften some of those edges, get rid of some of the sharp points again. So that's a couple of options that you can use to kind of create these kind of goopy letters to just kind of add a little bit more character beyond just kind of like using the warp. If you don't have a lot of drawing skills, you don't have a tablet, you can still kind of do that using the warp effects, well actually the warp tools, or the pencil tool. So there we go. Check in on. Oh wait, Robert has a question. Out the shared project and your comments were deleted, and I clicked solve. Oh yeah, you might have to reload. If you currently have a page open with comments, and somebody leaves comments on it, me go back over here. You're going to want to reload in order to see them, like refresh the page in your browser. So, and of course, I love the warp tools, fun to play around with. Yeah, they're super handy for creating like funky effects. You just want to have them turned down because they get really intense. Oh, I forgot something. We have like 1 minute. I can show this to you. In our colors, so the color not explore, yeah, explore. The explore tab on Adobe Color. If you still don't want to use the create with the color wheel, you can go over to your explore, and this is kind of like what we were doing with generative, the recolor. You can just type in some terms. So if you type in breakfast up here, it's going to give you color palettes from, some of them are from Image, some of them are from people have made these and like saved them. And you can, just like you can with Adobe Stock, you can download these as a JPEG if you want, or you can save them to your library. You're just going to want to, again, make sure you know what library you're saving them to. You also can pick, I don't know if you know this, you can pick what the source you want to pull from. So if you only wanted to pull from like stock, Adobe Stock photos, like in color palettes that have been created from Adobe Stock photos, you can do that. It's just another way. I think somebody asked about this, and I just wanted to make sure that I covered it. They asked in a previous live stream, and I want to make sure I covered it. This is, and it would work the same way when you added this color theme to your library. If we go back to our library panel, we're going to see it in here, and you can just right-click and add theme swatches. I'll just throw it in there. Okay, I think this is as far as we can get without running out of time. Yes, oh, I want to cover too many things, always. I have like a million more things I want to show you, but anyways, thank you so much for joining me for this set of Illustrator challenges. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some new tricks and had fun working along with me. If you made it all the way here, big congratulations. Give yourself a round of applause on putting together a professional branding presentation. You can, like I said, you can use that template. Feel free to modify it as you like and share it with clients. All right, but that's all from me. We've got more amazing live content up after. But for now,